Hi, my name is Matthew Nichols, and I'm the Director of Percussion Studies here at Florida Atlantic University. I wanted to give you a couple of tips and tricks that I utilized in preparing this etude that will hopefully help you as you are practicing this in preparation for the All State Audition. Now, the first thing we need to talk about is how we set the drums up. I like to sit when I play, and that's not because I'm lazy, but because I like to have the timpani at the best playing height possible. Sometimes when I stand behind the timpani, I'm tall enough that the drums would be too low for me to play and my arms would be fully extended down. But I also have to be careful that I don't just take a normal chair and sit on it, because if I do, then it's going to be too short and I'm going to have my hands up here. So utilizing a timpani stool or a higher, just between 32 and 36-inch stool that you can find will get you closer to this proper playing height. Now, in addition to having the seated position where I can have the right height, I also want to have the drums set up actually far enough away. A lot of times I see people who will put the drums close enough so they can play them all right here. But truth be told, as I'm playing timpani, I'm actually rotating my upper body. So if I rotate my upper body, my playing zones should be almost equidistant no matter which drum it is. So a lot of people that tuck them in close have to actually modify their technique to play the drum closer. So instead what I do is I sit down at the drums, and once I feel like I'm a far enough a distance away to play at the proper playing height for the middle two, I just swivel my upper body and I find that position for the low drum, and I'll move it closer or push it farther away depending. Same thing for the top drum. A lot of times people will set them up that they're not far enough away, and what ends up happening is you either reach too far to the middle and you'll spike it in the middle of the drum, which is not a great place to play, or you're going to hit the rim of some sort. So I want to make sure that we're always setting ourselves up for success before we even play our first note. Now, when we get into this piece, which is a huge undertaking as far as your grace note work, we need to make sure that our hands are capable of producing the sound we need before we even touch the drums. So a lot of your practice can be done ahead of time on a single playing surface with your timpani mallets, like a snare drum or a practice pad. Utilizing that to make sure that you can play your fast grace notes soft enough to bring out the primary note at the proper dynamic. I know I was spending a lot of time really flicking my wrist to get the four-stroke roughs to really come out the right way. And also, sometimes because I'm right-handed, a right-handed drag felt good, but the left-handed drag, which is absolutely necessary to utilize both the right and the left in this piece, that left-hand drag wasn't feeling as comfortable. So I definitely wanted to work on that to make it nice and comfortable. Now, the dynamic range can also be a little bit tricky, especially when you have to play the softer grace notes at measure 14. But do know that it is possible to still bring the line out while playing those grace notes. Again, if you practice this on a single surface, or even if you're on timpani and you want to just make sure you're not being influenced by the resonance, take them and put a cloth down or a piece of paper, something to muffle the drum, so all you're getting is that bland, just pure articulation of when you strike the drum. It's a good way to kind of make sure that you're not fooling yourself. There's a moment here in the music where we do have to pedal down the bottom drum from the low G down to a low F. And that's a tricky spot because whenever we have to pedal, we're really at the mercy of whatever instruments we have. Now, you may get comfortable doing the pedaling at your home school, but when you go in to do the audition, you may be on a set of drums that you're unfamiliar with. My philosophy with tuning is it's okay to be out of tune once, in that when we go to do that first pedal change, the moment I strike the note, I can tell if I got it in tune or not. And it's okay if it's just slightly out of tune. You memorize just a slight dip down from the G to the F. It's not going to be a drastic pedal change. But once you've realized whether it's out of tune or not, especially if it's out of tune, once you realize that, you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can. I keep my foot on the pedal until I'm satisfied with the pitch that it is. You can practice making this reference change by singing the notes. So I can practice singing from a B flat to a G, and then singing from a B flat to an F. I also will practice this on the marimba as well to hear it, maybe practice it on a piano, or have someone even play the bass rhythms on another melodic instrument while you play it on the timpani. It's a great way to just familiarize your ear with that interval change. But we definitely want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make that change as clear and as quick as possible. If you get it right on the first note, congratulations. Otherwise, you've got one note to fix it. And unfortunately, it comes pretty quick. So definitely keep yourself on edge and ready to go to make any adjustments necessary. The last thing I'll say is make sure that you have a mallet that's going to be articulate enough to bring out these triplets that happen. And they're fast triplets because we're in cut time, we're in 3/2. So we want to make sure you have something that's articulate enough for that, but also not something so articulate that the roll that happens in measure 7 loses its lusciousness. So what I have here essentially is a Vic Firth Tim Jennis series timpani mallet, the Beethoven Hards, which is a large, high-density felt core wrapped around German felt. Now I've taken that and I've taken it off the wooden handle and put it on a bamboo handle for my own preference. But you can order these Tim Jennis Vic Firth timpani mallets and they'll sound just as good out of the box. You could also use something like a hard tonal from that series or their tonal mallet, anything that's going to have articulation from the core but still gives you the chance to roll. I would avoid something as articulate as the ultra staccatos by Vic Firth or anything that's just a high density felt core with no wrapping on top of it, because that's going to get a very slappy or punchy articulation that's going to be a little bit more brittle than my taste would allow, and it's also going to make it a little bit harder to sweeten some of these longer tones that we're playing on this piece. So once you've gotten comfortable with your setup, you've got your embellishments worked out on a single surface or like a snare drum or even with the drums muted, and you got the right mallet for the gig, then I think you're going to be doing just great with this piece. Don't be afraid to isolate one measure at a time. There's only one instance where he recommends muffling that would happen. Otherwise, we can be a little bit picky as to how much or how little we muffle. I definitely don't want to lose the character of the music because of over resonance, but I also don't want to overwork by muffling too much. So that's about it for what I can offer. If you're having trouble preparing timpani because of the difficulties of getting access at school, I know most of us don't own timpani, myself included. What we do have is an issue of just being comfortable behind the instruments. And like I said, you can take it and practice this on a single surface to get your hands in check. Then when you're ready to put it on top of these 4 instruments, what we can do is we can take any sort of playing surface. I usually use pillows at home and set them up kind of like this, and I can practice the piece getting used to moving between the drums. Obviously, it's not the same as the real deal, but hopefully you can minimize the amount of time you need behind physical drums by you to be getting smart and creative with your practice at home. So I hope this has been helpful and I hope it's been educational. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, I wish you all the best as you continue preparing for your All State audition.